Hello, my friends. How are you doing? And I'm going to answer that question myself. And I hope you're doing great. I hope that this quarantine hasn't stopped you from achieving your goals, from studying harder, from doing whatever it is that you do, and still focus on the main and important things in life. Today we have a new session, and it is about relative clauses. And before I go on, I have to tell you what a clause is. Because then we see the terms during the presentation, and at the end, you guys say, "What the hell was that? I didn't get it. What's a clause in the first place?" But a clause is any sentence, my friends. Okay? And those clauses have different categories, but I'm not gonna get into that right now. I just want to tell you that a clause is any sentence. For example, my dog is fabulous. That is a clause. How do you call it? It's a noun clause because you are talking about a noun, the dog. Okay, you can have a verbal clause, you have a prepositional clause. We may get into that later, but today I just want to let you know that a clause is any sentence with full meaning. And what do we use these relative clauses for? And why do we even bother to give them time and study them? Well, they are great friends. If you are going to write, they can help you make your writing seem more professional. It adds more details. In this case, I'm going to read it. It says, we use relative clauses to give additional information about something without starting another sentence. By combining sentences with a relative clause, your text becomes more fluent and you can avoid repeating certain words. Okay, so we use relative clauses to give more flow to our speaking and to our writing. I think we use relative clauses more often when we write, but there is nothing that can prevent you from using them while you speak. You will sound so professional, my friends. Okay, after this, there's no limits. Okay, you following me? Let's move on. And then we have relative clauses with different relative pronouns. In this case, we are going to use when, where, and whose. And those relative pronouns can introduce defining and non-defining relative clauses. Oh, that's a lot of concepts. I know, take it easy. It's not going to be that difficult. It's going to be just relative pronouns and defining and non-defining relative clauses. And with those clauses can, as we mentioned before, add information about time, about place, and about possession. Relative pronouns first, before we move to the next thing. What is a relative pronoun? A relative pronoun is a word that connects two sentences. In this case, who and that are used for people. When you have a sentence or when you want to talk about people, you say who. In this case, Kim, who lives next door, is my friend. I want you to pay particular attention to the use of the little tiny commas here. Do you see it? Okay. If the sentence has commas, then it means that it is a non-defining clause. We are going to get into more detail in a little bit, but I just wanted to let you know that. So we're gonna take advantage of the examples and explain the topic as we move on. Okay, the next one. Which and that are used for things and animals. Okay, The only one that you can use interchangeably is who and that to speak about people. If you want to use who for animals, that wouldn't be correct. If you want to use which for a person, that wouldn't be correct. Stick to that principle. Who and that for people, which and that for things. And the example, Tom lives in an apartment building which is near the mall. What are we talking about here? The apartment building. And what that is, well, what it is a thing. That's why we use which to connect the sentences, to connect the clauses. The next relative pronoun is whose. And we use this one to show possession. In this case, this is Mr. Smith, whose son is an actor. In Spanish, you could translate whose to cuyo, cuya. Yes? I hope you're getting this, because many people have issues and trouble with the use of whose. Moving on, time. When you want to talk about time, you use when in your clause. Example, there is a touching moment when Brad walks down the aisle. In this case, do you see any commas there? If you don't see the commas, that's because the sentence is a defining relative clause. Another example, the best time to get married is in the summer, when it stays light all night. I don't know where that wedding is going to take place, probably in Siberia, where they have long winters and long summers. But in this case, you see the comma here, my friends? I hope you're paying attention to that. If you see the comma, that means that this is a non-defining relative clause. Oh, Professor, you're going too fast. I hope I am not. Besides, you can pause the video and go back to it as many times as you wish. The beauty of technology, fellas. And then, when you want to talk about place, you use the connector or the relative pronoun where. There are places in the US where a celebrity lookalike performs the ceremony. In this case, do you see any commas before where? Oh, you don't see a comma. That's because that's a defining relative clause. And everything must be there for the sentence to have a complete meaning. Next, some people go to Hawaii where they get married on the beach. In this case, you see the comma? Yeah, the comma is present. And that means it's a non-defining relative clause. You could omit this information and then the sentence would make perfect sense. Some people go to Hawaii. That's right. Some others prefer to go to Puerto Vallarta. Let's be more, let's talk about our country. Let's not give credit to other countries. And I hope you're getting that. Comma is a non-defining. You can omit the info after the comma and the sentence still makes sense. Next, when you talk about possession, when something or someone belongs to something or someone. Example, I have lots of friends whose parents use the matchmaker. In this case, you see a comma before whose? No, you don't see it. Then that makes it a defining relative clause. You need everything in the sentence for the thing to make sense. And some couples use a fortune teller whose job is to choose the best day. Example here, this is a non-defining. You could omit whose job is to choose the best day because many people would know the meaning of a fortune teller without telling what that person does. So you can omit it. So you have to be very careful here and see if the information that you have in the sentences is totally relevant to the sentence or it is a bit irrelevant. Can you omit everything? No. what this does, the non-defining relative clauses give you details that are good for your speaking and your writing. You don't sound so dry. You add details, and that impacts the imagination of your listener, and they are going to pay attention to you in a better way. Yes? I hope so. Common error. Oh yeah. Many people commit this one. I include myself in this because I was, and I am still learning English. This is not my native language, and I sometimes committed it. And I was like, wow, it's like whose? Sounds the same thing as whose. What's the difference? Here, to identify the difference, you have to pay attention to the context. If you're talking about something that belongs to someone, then if somebody says whose, it's going to mean this. If you are defining who that person is, or who that thing is, you say who is, or who has, depending, yes? Example, who plus apostrophe plus s, who is. Who plus has, and then you can contract that form and say whose. Pay attention to those little details. And now, we've discussed this before, right? During this video, And defining relative clauses give necessary information essential to the meaning of the main sentence. We never put them in commas. Important. Examples. We already saw a lot of them. The boy who sits next to me in class is my friend. If that person tells you, the boy in class is my friend, and you could say with total backup, what are you talking about? What boy are you talking about? And then, what the relative clause does is it provides more information. It gives more meaning to the sentence. The boy who sits next to me, here you're defining which boy. Which boy? The boy who sits next to me in class. Then the relative clause is essential to the meaning of the main sentence. You know, you may argue that the meaning of the sentence was present before the relative clause. It may very well be. But for the sake of this, you need more information to define what you're talking about and what person, what thing you're talking about, you're referring to. Okay? You must make your speech or your writing more precise. Moving on, spring is the time when many people get married. In this case, if you say, spring is the time. What if I told you, guys, spring is the time? And you can say, Professor, are you getting out of your mind with this quarantine? Yeah, I probably am. I wouldn't be so sure, fellas, but in this case, it wouldn't make any sense. Spring is the time. Spring is the time for what, sir? Give me more info. In this case, gives you more info when many people get married. Yeah? The hotel where my parents had their receptions closed. I told you, the hotel. Then again, what hotel? What are you talking about? Provide more information that is really necessary, and these are defining relative clauses. Another example, I have an uncle. What if I told you, I have an uncle? And you could say, oh yeah, great, good for you, sir. I have many of them. You only have one? And then if you have more information, I have an uncle whose marriage was arranged. Holy Jesus. And going back to the good friends, non-defining relative clauses, these ones give extra information that is substantial but not essential. Oh, there you go with the big words, sir. That is not essential to the meaning of the main sentence. It is a bad thing to have not essential information. No, it isn't. Provides more details. It is a good thing. Don't look at this as a bad thing. Okay? We are here just defining these concepts, but I'm not in favor of using non-defining or using defining. It's important to notice that. In this case, we put them in commas. When you write non-defining, you put the commas, and that denotates that you are using non-defined relative clauses. In this case, we cannot use that instead of who or which. And I think I mentioned that. Please pay attention and don't commit that mistake. In this case, Kari, who cannot see that, who sits next to me in class, is very funny. Kari is very funny. If you say that, that has total and complete meaning. But who sits next to me in class gives you more information, makes the thing more interesting. And if you have the commas, you have a non-defining relative clause. Why is it non-defining, Professor? Kari is very funny. That's a complete sentence. Has complete meaning. That's why. I think there's nothing else to say here. We can move on and make this video a little shorter than usual. I'm getting crazy with the time here. I hope you guys are not consuming all of your data with this, because YouTube is a data eater like nothing else. People like to get married in the spring when it's warmer. Okay. There was a garden where the photos were taken. You say this, there was a garden, people may understand. The other information is interesting but not essential. And then he had strict parents whose aim was to find him a bride. He had strict parents, complete meaning, whose aim was to find him a bride. Great information, right? You're gonna gossip about it. Like, oh, there you go now. This guy was in trouble. And I hope you guys enjoyed this presentation. And I hope you can complete all the work in your book and continue to be safe. I wish you the best today and always. See you the next time.